The Hawk by Barry Booker, Chapter 1, The Contract. The room smelled of stale cigarettes and overpriced bourbon, a pungent mix clinging to the yellowed walls like a ghost of bad decisions. Flickering neon from the street below seeped through cracked blinds, casting jagged shadows across a scarred oak desk. The Hawk preferred places like this, anonymous, transient, the kind of nondescript safe house that blurred into the background of a city he couldn't name. No photos, no personal touches, just four walls, a door with 3 deadbolts, and the hum of a laptop fan cutting through the silence.
He didn't do ties, didn't do speeches, didn't do politics. The Hawk dealt in outcomes. A relic of a colder era, his face bore the map of his trade, a pale scar bisecting his left eyebrow, knuckles calloused from a lifetime of violence wearing gloves. At 52, he moved with the taut efficiency of a man who knew time was both an ally and a blade at his throat. The laptop glowed, its encrypted connection routing through servers in Minsk, Karachi, Reykjavik. A green light blinked, secure. The message was brief, clinical. Target Eleanor Mitchell. Location Melbourne, Australia. Confirmation required.
The dossier was thinner than he'd expected. 5 pages. Age 61. Senator, climate policy architect. A photo showed her mid-laugh at a rally, silver hair windblown, hands dirt-streaked from shaking laborers' grips. The Hawk's mouth twitched. Theatre, politicians were all the same, costumes and scripts. But the client? That gave him pause. United States government. Not a cipher, not a cutout. Direct, state-sanctioned, buried under enough paperwork to suffocate a courtroom. He traced the rim of his coffee mug, bitter steam stinging his eyes. Australia. A sprawl of desert and coastline, a place where a foreign face drew notice. Melbourne's labyrinth of alleys and surveillance cameras would complicate things. But complication was a language he spoke fluently.
His reply was characteristically succinct. Accepted. Timeline?
The answer came faster than he anticipated. 7 days. Payment upon confirmation. Full discretion required. The Hawk almost laughed. Discretion. As if he'd lasted this long on luck. He'd vanished from a CIA black site in 03, slipped through a Mossad dragnet in Damascus. Discretion wasn't a demand, it was his religion. Closing the laptop, he lit a cigarette, the flare of the match briefly illuminating a faded tattoo on his wrist, a cross and coordinates. Melbourne. Winter there now. Crowded streets, rain-slickened rooftops. He'd need a rifle with a subsonic profile, something modular to fit in diplomatic cargo. A passport under the name Klaus Richter, German national, water rights consultant. 7 days.
He stood, joints protesting, and opened a rusted safe bolted to the floor. Inside lay a Glock 19, a stack of untraceable euros, and a silver pendant of St. Michael, a gift from a dead man in Bogota. The Hawk pocketed it all, habit overriding superstition. Outside thunder growled, a storm was coming. Time to work. Eden grime. A sagging couch upholstered in faded floral fabric, its cushions spewing foam, and a narrow bed framed by rusted springs, its mattress stained and sunken. A stack of supplies sat in the corner. Bottled water, dented cans of beans, a basic medical kit, and a satellite phone older than some of his aliases. He tossed his duffel onto the bed, sending a plume of dust into the sunlight slicing through a cracked window. It would do.
3 hours later, the rifle lay disassembled on the table, each component gleaming under the beam of his headlamp. He worked methodically, fingers calloused but steady, cleaning the barrel, testing the scope's calibration. Precision was religion. The client demanded Mitchell's death look like an accident. A single shot, no witnesses, no margin for error. Melbourne's Flinders Street station would offer crowds for cover and architecture for elevation. But first, he needed to navigate Australia's chaos, its searing deserts, its venomous wildlife, its vast, indifferent wilderness.
Nightfall brought no relief. The temperature plummeted, the air sharp with the scent of eucalyptus and dust. The Hawk sat on the porch, a cigarette dangling from his lips, its ember cutting through the darkness. Then he heard it, a dry, sinuous hiss near his boot. He froze. The snake emerged like a shadow given form, jet black, muscle coiled beneath scales, tongue flicking the air. It paused, head raised, eyes reflecting the lantern's glow. Australia's rule echoed in his skull. Assume everything here wants you dead. Slowly he palmed the knife sheathed at his ankle, breath shallow. The standoff stretched, seconds grinding into eternity. Then, with a dismissive ripple, the creature slid into the scrub, leaving only a trail in the sand.
The Hawk exhaled, sweat cooling on his neck. He'd faced drug lords and mercenaries, but this continent was a different breed of predator. Tomorrow, he'd fly to Sydney, secure a sniper rifle through underground channels, forge documents, become someone else. But here, under a sky ablaze with stars, he was just meat. The outback didn't care about his reputation. It only demanded respect. He stubbed out the cigarette, the night's chorus of insects and wind swallowing the gesture whole. In cities, he was the hunter. Here, he was prey. Chapter 3. Arrival in Sydney. The moment the Hawk stepped off the plane at Sydney Kingsford Smith Airport, the humid Australian air hit him like a wall. The terminal buzzed with the cacophony of travellers, families reuniting, backpackers laughing, businessmen scrolling phones. He inhaled deeply, the scent of jet fuel and eucalyptus lingering as he merged into the crowd.
Daniel Cross. The name echoed in his mind like a mantra. His new identity was etched into a Canadian passport, its pages adorned with deliberate, unremarkable stamps from Tokyo, Vancouver, and Frankfurt, a paper trail crafted to bore even the most meticulous border agent. The alias came with a LinkedIn profile listing bland corporate achievements, a Facebook account with generic sunset photos, and a Gmail address filled with spam about golf retreats. It was artful in its mediocrity.
At immigration, he offered the officer a polite, practiced smile.
Here for business or pleasure?
The agent asked, flipping through the passport.
Bit of both.
The Hawk replied, his accent a flawless Toronto cadence.
Hoping to squeeze in a harbor cruise if the meetings wrap up early.
A disassembled Sig Sauer MCX, smoke grenades tagged in Korean. He dismantled each piece, inspecting springs and barrels with the precision of a surgeon. Satisfied, he repacked them, leaving a Beretta 92 within quick reach. Next, a tailor in Newtown, its storefront unassuming between a kebab shop and a laundromat. The bell jingled as he entered. The tailor, a wiry man with ink-stained fingers, nodded once and led him to a back room. 3 outfits hung in garment bags. 1 corporate drone, a navy suit, tailored to bland perfection, paired with tortoiseshell glasses, ideal for slipping through financial districts, invisible as a shadow. 2 construction worker, steel-capped boots, a high-vis vest with a peeling Federation Square site access sticker, a costume tested in a dozen cities. 3 tourist, cargo shorts, a Nikon slung around the neck, a sun hat frayed at the brim, the ultimate anonymity, a face lost in a sea of selfie sticks. By dusk, he stood in a rented apartment overlooking Darling Harbour, the water shimmering with reflected city lights. Sydney was alive beneath him, ferries gliding, laughter rising from bars, the hum of a metropolis that thrived on distraction. Perfect for a ghost. Yet unease prickled his spine. A flicker of instinct, honed over years. Had the storage unit's lock been too smooth? A camera lingering near the taxi rank? Across the city, Inspector Ava Byrne leaned into the sticky vinyl booth of a Surrey Hills pub, her whiskey untouched. Across from her, Mark Reynolds, her ex and now a mid-level attaché at the US Embassy, smirked.
You're wasting time doubting me, Ava.
You're asking me to believe Washington's staging a hit on our PM.
She hissed.
Over trade talks? Believe what you want, but the chatter's real. 6 days.
She stood, tossing cash on the table. Give me a name, Mark.
He shrugged.
You know how this works. They're a ghost.
Outside, Ava lit a cigarette, her hands steady but her mind racing. 6 days. No name, no face, just a city of 5 million and a killer already breathing in its shadows. Chapter 4. The Ghost in the System. The Hawk didn't sleep much. He never did before a job. He sat on the cramped balcony of his rented apartment, the city's neon glow bleeding into the pre-dawn haze. Below, Sydney's streets hummed with the restless energy of nightlife and distant sirens. A warm, salt-tinged breeze ruffled his shirt as he traced the silhouette of the Opera House across the harbour, its sails sharp against the bruised sky. In the morning, he'd fly to Canberra for final reconnaissance. After that, Melbourne. Game day. His phone buzzed, a single vibration that cut through the stillness. The encrypted app displayed a terse message.
Safe house in Melbourne secured. Your position is being monitored. Avoid unnecessary exposure.
He smirked. The client was nervous. Understandable. A failed hit on Eleanor Mitchell, Australia's iron-fisted Deputy Prime Minister, wouldn't just collapse their shadowy deal, it would ignite a geopolitical firestorm. But the Hawk didn't fail. Not after Belgrade, not after Jakarta. Flicking his cigarette into the void, he watched the ember spiral 9 stories down before vanishing. He powered off the phone, pried out the SIM card, and ground it to plastic dust beneath his boothiel. Inside, he methodically locked his gear into a nondescript black case, suppressed Sig Sauer, custom-tooled blades, forged passports, and laid his go-bag by the door. When he finally stretched out on the thin mattress, his mind flickered with calculations. Exit routes, security layouts, the rhythm of Mitchell's motorcade. 5 days. ASIO headquarters, Canberra, Inspector Ava Byrne's office, smelled of stale coffee and desperation.
You know what's pissing me off the most?
She muttered, glaring at the chaos of surveillance stills and intercept reports cluttering the table. A grainy photo of Mitchell mid-speech stared back, a red X slashed across it.
Enlighten me.
Detective Sam Patel didn't glance up from his laptop.
There's nothing.
She snapped, shoving a folder aside.
No chatter, no leads, no goddamn breadcrumbs, just static.
Maybe our guy's a ghost?
Has better than a ghost?
Byrne growled.
Ghosts leave traces, cold spots, EMF spikes.
She jabbed a finger at the board.
This is a professional, and we're out of time.
Her informant, an ex-lover turned CIA liaison, had slipped her the tip during a whiskey-fueled midnight call. Contracts been placed. Melbourne. 5 days. No name, no description. Just the suffocating certainty that a killer was already in play. She massaged her temples.
We need to squeeze someone close to the embassy.
You want to rattle Langley's cage? They'll bury us.
Let him try.
Byrne stood, her chair screeching.
Call in every favor. I want eyes on every diplomatic plate, every consultant sipping flat whites in circular quay. Someone's babysitting this op, and I want their name.
Non-sequential bills. Clean. Professional. At Federation Square, he ordered a flat white at a cafe with sightlines to the plaza. The square teemed with tourists snapping photos of the jagged postmodern facade, students loitering near the Acme Museum, and a lone busker butchering men at work on a didgeridoo. His eyes tracked higher. Flinders Street Station's mustard yellow dome loomed above the chaos, its upper floors derelict, windows grimy with neglect. Perfect. The station's labyrinthine corridors and rooftop access points would let him vanish after the shot. He lingered until dusk, mapping patrol patterns of the board's security guards. Their radios crackled with static, their boots scuffed the tiles at predictable intervals. By nightfall, Head charted 3 escape routes. Through the station's back alleys, across Prince's Bridge, or into the dim warren of Chinatown. ASIO command. Canberra Inspector Ava Byrne's knuckles whitened as she gripped the edge of the conference table. The screens behind her flickered with CCTV stills of blurred faces and license plates.
Ghost,
She said, her voice slicing through the hum of servers.
Tier 1 training, no biometric hits, no financial trail. But has here.
The analysts exchanged uneasy glances. Military liaisons leaned back, arms crossed, while federal agents scribbled notes.
You're telling us a Spectre's going to shoot the PM on live TV? Give me something actionable, Byrne.
Rowley SIO's deputy director snorted.
Sydney Airport flagged a Daniel Cross Canadian consultant entered 3 days ago. No tax filings, no socials, no digital footprint, just a shell rental in Melbourne.
She zoomed in on a grainy airport camera still. A man in a hoodie, head down, carrying a guitar case.
A guitar case?
Or a rifle case.
Byrne countered.
I want 24/7 surveillance. Tap every traffic cam, track every tram card. This ends before Australia Day.
Melbourne. 2 days before the hit. The Hawk felt the shift like a barometric drop. The city's rhythm had tightened. A half-second pause in the tram conductor's voice, a janitor's lingering stare as he mopped the lobby. At a riverside bar, he sipped a Victoria bitter, sunglasses reflecting the afternoon glare. Across the street, a man in a Melbourne United jersey pretended to text, his neck tendons taut. Near the tram stop, a woman in athleisure tightened her ponytail, her gaze sweeping the crowd like a metronome. Amateurs. He paid his tab in cash, leaving a 20% tip, the kind of forgettable generosity a tourist would perform. As he meandered toward Queen Victoria Market, he ducked into a restroom, shedding his shirt and sunglasses in a trash bin. Emerged in a high-visibility vest and hard hat, clipboard in hand. The watchers blew past him, frantic. Back at the safe house, he disassembled the rifle, polishing each component with obsessive care. They knew his alias, they knew his face, but they didn't know him. 2 days to go. Chaos was coming. Chapter 6. The Shadow War. Melbourne. 48 hours before the hit. The Hawk leaned against a rusted lamppost outside Flinders Street Station, its yellowed light casting long shadows over the evening crowd. Around him, commuters surged like a river, tourists snapping photos of the station's grand Victorian facade, students lugging backpacks, office workers rushing for trains. He scrolled absently through his phone, the glow reflecting in his mirrored sunglasses, but his attention was elsewhere. ASIO had finally put eyes on him. He'd spotted the first tail near the Yarra River, a woman in a grey blazer, too focused on a newspaper, then a man in a baseball cap lingering by the tram stop. 4 in total over 2 hours, their movements synchronized, their postures rigid. Not amateurs, not local police, federal agents. They kept their distance, circling like sharks, waiting for a misstep. They weren't sure yet. He needed to vanish. Casually, he slipped into the nearby Maya department store, its glass doors swallowing him into a maze of perfume counters and mannequins. Elevator music mingled with chatter as he wove through racks of overpriced suits, his leather boots silent on polished tiles. He took the escalator, pausing on the 3rd floor to grab a tan trench coat from a display, swapping it with his black jacket. On the 5th floor, he ditched the sunglasses in a potted fern. By the 7th, he melted into a tour group, chattering in Mandarin, following them toward an emergency exit. A stairwell door clicked shut behind him. 2 minutes later, he emerged into a service alley, the scent of dumpsters replacing the store's cloying cologne. He was gone before ASIO's radios crackled to life. ASIO Operations Room, 9:45 p.m.
Fuck.
Byrne slammed her fist on the steel desk, sending a coffee cup rattling. Monitors lining the wall flickered, with CCTV feeds frozen on blurred figures and empty stairwells.
That went well.
Spare me the sarcasm.
Byrne snapped, her auburn curls escaping their bun.
How did he slip 4 trained agents in a shopping mall?
Rowley, hunched over a keyboard, sighed.
He's a ghost. Changes tactics every time, no patterns, no digital footprint. But he knew we were there. That's a mistake.
Byrne paced, her heels echoing. The Hawk wasn't just elusive, he was a strategist. If he detected surveillance, he'd alter his plan. But adaptation required communication, and communication left traces.
We don't chase.
She said suddenly.
We box him in, control the terrain.
He's got the advantage of surprise.
Patel frowned. Not anymore.
She turned to Rowley. Federation Square on Australia Day, every rooftop, every window within 800 meters. I want snipers on our side, thermal drones, undercovers in the crowd. Seal it airtight.
Rowley nodded. He'll walk into a trap.
Byrne stared at the pixelated CCTV still on screen. The Hawk had slipped into Melbourne's veins, but she'd bleed him out. The Hawk's safe house, 1:12 a.m. Rain tapped against the warehouse's corrugated roof. As the Hawk sat cross-legged on the concrete floor, a single lamp casting jagged shadows. Before him lay his disassembled L-150A3 rifle, its components gleaming like surgical tools. He cleaned each piece methodically, barrel, bolt, suppressor, his hands steady. ASIO's attention complicated things. He'd need to abandon this safe house by dawn. But none of it mattered. 2 days. The Prime Minister's motorcade would pause at Federation Square for the national anthem, a 12-second window. He'd already calculated the windage, the elevation, the perfect vantage point. He reassembled the rifle with practiced ease, his mind replaying past kills, the dictator in Dubai, the oligarch in Oslo, each shot a whisper, each escape a legend. ASIO thought they could predict him, but they didn't understand. He thrived in chaos. He clicked the scope into place. 1 moment, 1 breath, 1 bullet. The game had changed, so would the outcome. Chapter 7. The trap is set. Melbourne, 24 hours before the hit. The city breathed in the humid summer air, its streets pulsing with the pre-dawn stillness of a predator lying in wait. The Hawk moved through Melbourne's labyrinth like smoke, his black jacket blending into the shadows. He avoided the glow of security cameras, his face obscured by a cap pulled low. Every footfall was deliberate, every breath measured. He'd switched apartments twice in 48 hours. First a nondescript studio in Richmond, then a crumbling walk-up above a shuttered bookstore in Carlton. His burner phone lay disassembled in a storm drain, its SIM card dissolving in a gutter. Paranoia was his religion, survival his sacrament. ASIO had forced him to adapt. Their patrols had thickened around Federation Square, snipers posted on rooftops, drones humming like wasps. The window above Flinders Street Station, his original vantage point, now swarmed with tactical teams. But the Hawk thrived on unpredictability. He melted into the crowd at Southern Cross Station, studying blueprints on a stolen tablet, searching for the overlooked, the forgotten. By sunset, he'd found it. A derelict maintenance room tucked above platform 10, its door rusted shut, hinges caked with grime. A relic from the station's 19th century skeleton, untouched since the 1980s. He picked the lock with a hairpin, the metallic screech echoing in the empty corridor. Inside, dust motes swam in the dim light, and cobwebs draped the walls like lace. A lone redback spider skittered across the floor, vanishing into a crack. The hawk smirked, nature's own security system. He returned to his safe house, a windowless storage unit in Docklands, and laid out his tools. A disassembled Accuracy International AXMC rifle, subsonic rounds, a suppressor. He cleaned each component twice, his hands steady. One shot, one life, then vanish. Tomorrow, Eleanor Mitchell's blood would rewrite geopolitics. The hawk slept for 4 hours, dreamless. ASIO command, 8 a.m., Australia Day. The operations room buzzed with grim focus. Monitors flickered with live feeds from Federation Square, where crowds waved flags and children's faces were painted with koalas. Senior Agent Ava Byrne stood motionless, her eyes locked on the aerial map.
Every known sniper nest is covered,
Insisted Agent Rowley, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses, even the car parks. Byrne's jaw tightened.
He's not in any of them.
She'd tracked the hawk's patterns for years. Moscow, Johannesburg, Manila. He favored the poetry of irony. Killing a senator in a courthouse, a general at his daughter's wedding.
He's here,
She muttered, zooming in on Flinders Street Station.
but he's not above the crowd. He's among them.
Tech analyst Patel froze.
the old maintenance tunnels, but we swept those.
Patel said.
Not tunnels.
Byrne cut in.
Rooms, storage closets, service hatches.
She stabbed a finger at the screen.
There's a dead zone here. Platform 10's upper level. No cameras since 2003,
Rowley paled. That's not in the blueprint archives.
because someone scrubbed it.
Byrne grabbed her sidearm.
Now,
Flinders Street Station, 10:55 a.m. The hawk lay prone on a moth-eaten tarp, his rifle barrel protruding through a ventilation slit. Below, Eleanor Mitchell ascended the stage, her coral suit bright against the sea of bodies. The crowd's roar crescendoed, a primal, hungry sound. He adjusted his scope, crosshairs aligning with her temple. Breathe in, breathe out. Then a scrape of boots on metal. His pulse spiked, the door rattled.
drop the weapon.
Byrne's voice, razor-sharp, pierced the room. The hawk's finger hovered over the trigger. 1 second. 1 shot. A searing pain lanced his hand. The redback spider, disturbed from its nest, struck again. Venom burned through his veins. His shot rang out, the recoil jerking his arm sideways. On stage, Mitchell stumbled, clutching her bleeding cheek. Chaos erupted. Byrne burst in, weapon raised, but the hawk was already convulsing, his lungs collapsing. His last blurred vision, the spider scuttling over his rifle, triumphant. Fuck. Darkness. Melbourne. 2 hours later, Byrne slumped on the station's sandstone steps, her shirt stained with sweat and the hawk's blood. Paramedics wheeled Mitchell into an ambulance, reporters swarming like flies. The shot had been a graze, miraculous, the doctors said.
Rowley approached holding an evidence bag. The spider
He said grim.
probably hitched a ride in his gear.
Byrne almost laughed. Australia's deadliest creature had saved them. Her phone buzzed, a blocked number. She answered, silent. Came a distorted voice.
But the game's just beginning.
The line died. Byrne stared at the horizon, where storm clouds gathered. Somewhere a puppet master seethed. Somewhere another killer sharpened his tools. She lit a cigarette, her hands steady.
Bring it on.
End.